The Galactic Council had been clear in their assessment. Humans were too soft, too breakable, too fragile for frontline combat operations. Their bones lacked the density of Croaxian exoskeletons. Their skin couldn't regenerate like Veltheran tissue. They didn't possess the redundant organ systems of the Thulmar warriors. Commander Zexthar of the Third Fleet had read the reports with his 4 eyes, each one processing the data independently before his brain synthesized the conclusion. Humans were support species at best. Engineers, medics, strategic advisors. Certainly not soldiers. That was before the Battle of Karis IV. The defense station had been holding against the swarm for 72 hours when the shield generators finally collapsed. Zexthar watched from the command deck of the orbital platform as antimatter warheads rained down on the fortified positions below. Each explosion registered on the sensors as a miniature star being born and dying in the same instant. Sector 7 is gone, his tactical officer reported, mandibles clicking nervously. Direct hit. Estimated 50 personnel lost. Among those 50 was Outpost Delta 9, where human advisors Paula Reeves and Amanda Chen had been stationed alongside a Croaxian heavy weapons team. The blast crater was 300 meters wide and still glowing with residual radiation. Nothing could have survived. Zexthar felt a pang of regret. He'd spoken with Paula just that morning, a brief conversation about supply requisitions. She'd smiled in that peculiar human way, lips curving upward, a gesture that still unsettled him despite months of working with her species. Amanda had been quieter, methodical, always checking and rechecking equipment with an obsessive attention to detail that Zexthar had come to respect. Now, they were vapor. Atoms scattered across a radioactive wasteland. Mark their transponders as KIA, Zexthar ordered, his voice carrying the harmonic undertones of mourning. Send notification to, Sir. The sensor operator's voice cracked with something between disbelief and terror. I'm detecting movement in Sector 7. Impossible. The radiation levels alone. I'm reading a single life sign. Humanoid. Moving toward the evacuation point. Every eye on the command deck turned toward the main display. The thermal imaging showed a figure emerging from the crater's edge, stumbling, falling, then rising again. The radiation counter beside the image was a screaming red that should have meant instant death. Get me a visual, Zexthar demanded. The camera drones swooped down through the ash-filled air. The image that resolved on screen would later become legendary across 100 worlds. Paula Reeves walked through hell itself. Her armor was gone, melted away in the initial blast. Her uniform hung in charred tatters. Her exposed skin was burned in patterns that made Zexthar's stomachs churn. But she walked, one foot in front of the other, supporting something on her shoulders. Magnify, Zexthar whispered. Amanda Chen hung across Paula's back in a fireman's carry, unconscious but alive. His left leg was twisted at an angle that shouldn't exist. Blood, red human blood, painted trails down Paula's arms where she gripped him. How? The tactical officer breathed. The blast, the radiation, the heat. Paula stumbled, dropped to one knee. For a moment, Zexthar thought she would finally collapse, finally submit to the laws of physics and biology that should have killed her 1,000 times over. But then she planted her free hand against the scorched earth, pushed herself up, adjusted Amanda's weight, and continued walking. Get a medical team to evac point Gamma, Zexthar ordered. Now! Sir, the radiation. Now! The rescue team met Paula at the edge of the safe zone. She crossed the threshold, took 3 more steps, and carefully, so carefully lowered Amanda to the ground before collapsing beside him. In the medical bay, as Veltheran doctors swarmed over both humans with technology that had saved countless lives across the galaxy, Zexthar stood at the observation window and tried to understand what he'd witnessed. Dr. Kelvix joined him, her healing tentacles still glistening from surgery. They'll both survive, she said, though I don't understand how. The radiation exposure alone should have been lethal. The burns, the trauma, the blood loss, any one of these injuries would have killed most species I've treated. But not humans? Apparently not. Kelvix's skin rippled with patterns of confusion. Their physiology is remarkable. No redundant organs, no regenerative capabilities, no natural armor. Yet somehow they possess something we didn't account for in our assessments. What's that? Stubbornness, I believe they call it. Or perhaps refusing to die when someone needs you. Their medical scans show that Reeves's adrenal system flooded her body with chemicals that essentially shut down her pain receptors and massively increased her strength and endurance. She was operating on what they call adrenaline and willpower alone. Zexthar watched Paula through the window. Even unconscious and covered in regenerative gel, she seemed to radiate something fierce, something unbreakable. "I was wrong," he said quietly. "Sir, in my assessment, humans aren't fragile because they break easily. They're fragile because they break hard. They don't have armor because they refuse to need it. They don't have backup organs because they push the ones they have past any reasonable limit." He turned to face his medical officer. "We thought fragility was weakness. We didn't understand it was their weapon." 3 days later, when Paula regained consciousness, the first thing she asked about was Amanda. When told he was alive and recovering, she closed her eyes and smiled that unsettling human smile. "Good," she whispered. "That's good." The Galactic Council revised their assessment of humans 6 weeks after the Battle of Karis IV. The new designation read simply, "Cleared for all combat operations. Extreme caution advised when determining terminal status. Humans have demonstrated an alarming tendency to survive the unsurvivable." Commander Zexthar kept a copy of Paula's sensor data from that day, the thermal image of a human walking through radiation and ruin, with another human on her back. He showed it to every officer who questioned why humans deserved respect. They said humans were too fragile for frontline duty. They were right about the fragile part. They just didn't understand that sometimes being breakable and choosing not to break is the greatest strength of all. The end.